Hello, jumping on to do a new video for you about N-Acetyl Cysteine and Trichotillomania, the hair pulling disorder. I'm going to be deep diving into a clinical study that was done for adults back in 2009. So let's get started. For those who don't know me, my name's Laura Schulz. I'm a clinical nutritionist and Trichotillomania specialist. I've had Trich since I was 14 years old. I have my university degree in a Bachelor of Health Science, majoring in nutrition and dietetic medicine. So I've had Trich since I was 14. At the recording of this video, I'm currently 44. So it's been 30 years. I've been researching the effects of nutrition and Trich for the last, that's actually 8 years now. That hasn't been updated. And I founded the Tricky Nutrition. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram back in 2021. So just for anyone watching this video, this information provided in this video is for educational purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice. I advise you to consult a medical professional or health practitioner if seeking specific advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So today I just wanted to talk about N-Acetyl Cysteine and Trich. So for those who don't know, N-Acetyl Cysteine is a supplement that's widely talked about in Trich support groups. So I just wanted to add a little video in here, just going through one of the main studies. So a lot of people talk about how its effectiveness, and it's based on this study back in 2009. So to do this work, I was looking at a literature review that was done in 2022, so 2 years ago at the recording of this video. It was called The Potential of N-Acetyl Cysteine for the Treatment of Trichotillomania Excoriation Disorder. So that's your skin picking, onychophagia, so that's your nail biting, and onychotillomania, so that's the pulling of the skin around the nails. So what they did is they searched for peer-reviewed articles using PubMed and Medline databases on the internet. And it was done in 2022. So I'm going to be concentrating today on the NAC and Trich studies. So it might surprise people that there was only 11 studies done on NAC and Trich. And out of those studies, there was only 2 that had like bulk amount of people in it. So the study that we're going to be talking about today had 50 people, and there's also a pediatric a study that was done on 39 children and adolescents, and then 9 of these were just case reports. So that's like a practitioner or a doctor or a health professional that has basically seen results in what they're doing in clinic, and then they write a full report about it. So there's really only 2 randomized double-blind controlled trials. So that's sort of the gold standard of clinical trials. That just means everything's totally randomized. Double-blind means the practitioner, like the people holding the studies, don't know who's getting the placebo or the supplement or medication. In this case, it's a supplement. And the people who are in the study also don't know. So that's what double-blind controlled trial means. So today we're just going to be going through the adult study because I found it really interesting. So this was done back in 2009, so a very long time ago. It was actually 15 years ago to when I'm doing this video. So there hasn't been a lot of research about it, but I know NAC gets talked about a lot. So I thought it would be worthwhile to basically dissect and dive a little bit deeper into what was in this study. So there was 50 individuals, 45 were female and 5 males. So if you have been around the Trich world for a little while, you'll probably know that Trich does affect females a lot more than males, so which is why the study was probably 45 female and 5 male. The mean age was 34.3 years old, so mid-30s. The objective of the study was to determine the efficacy and tolerability of N-Acetyl Cysteine in adults with trichotillomania. You see the TTM written there, that's just the medical abbreviation for trichotillomania. The intervention that was done, so N-Acetyl Cysteine was given. The dosing range was between 1,200 and 2,400 milligrams per day, or the other group was the placebo. So the placebo is basically just a pill that has nothing in it, to see if which group had the better results. So, and this was administered, it was a 12-week study. So just the inclusion criteria that was there, so people that were not allowed in the study were if you had previously treated yourself with N-Acetyl Cysteine, and if there was lifetime history of bipolar disorder, dementia, schizophrenia, or any other psychotic disorders. So those were not included in as participants in this study. So out of these adult patients, I think this is also worthwhile noting, is that 30 of the enrolled patients reported at least one clinically important current comorbid disorder. So clinically important means it probably affects the hair pulling, and it'd be things like depression, anxiety, if those sort of things are affecting. So when you're getting anxious, you're pulling more, then they're going to see that as clinically significant, and it would be noted in the study. So 14 had depression, 14 had anxiety, 18 had another impulse control disorder, as I mentioned before, skin picking or nail picking. They might have had, so it is common to have multiple of those impulse control disorders. 4 had ongoing psychotherapy, so they were already in therapy, and 28 were taking psychotherapy medication. So, but to be included in the study, they had to have had a stable dose for at least 6 months. So they weren't still playing around with doses and going up and down, up and down. So they had to be on that same for the 6 months prior to the study starting. So the study design, so you were either given the NAC supplement, so the N-Acetyl Cysteine supplement, or a placebo, and they were given it to them in a one-on-one manner. So they literally handed it and then take it. So 25, so out of the 50, 25 were in the NAC group and 25 in the placebo group. They started with 1,200 milligrams per day for the first 6 weeks of the trial. And then the other 25% were given the matching placebo. They did in this study, they tried to keep the pills the same, to make sure that it looked very similar. And another note is they used the Swanson Nutraceuticals, which is not a regulated supplement company. So, it's not regulated, and we're not really sure how much NAC they're getting in each capsule. So I think that's worth noting as well. So at week 6, the dose was increased. So it was doubled to 2,400 milligrams per day, unless there was clinical improvement. And in this case, they only didn't increase it if the cessation of hair pulling for an entire 3-week period. So if they had stopped hair pulling entirely for 3 weeks, they didn't have an increase. They would keep them on that same dose of 1,200 milligrams. And of the 2 groups, so interesting, in the placebo group, 22 received the dose increase. So that means 3, obviously, in the placebo group stopped pulling for at least a 3-week period in that first 6 weeks. And so they stayed on the same placebo. They were on a placebo anyway. And then in the NAC group, it was 18, so received the increase. So obviously 7 of those had seen improvements and didn't need to increase. So they stayed on that 1,200 milligram per day dose. So this is the analysis of the data after the completion of the clinical trial. So 6 patients did not complete the study. So it was 22 of the 25 in the NAC group and 22 of the 25. So that's who completed. So we've got 22 on either side during the 12 weeks. And it turns out, so 56% of patients showed much or very much improved with NAC compared to 16%. So it's quite a big difference. We didn't see this difference in the pediatric trial that was done 4 years later, but in that one study, but that's really, you've got to think it's from 22 people that took it. We're seeing 56% of those have seen improvement. So it's really not a very big study and not very well like it hasn't been followed up again, unfortunately. There hasn't been enough studies around it. So I'd also want to note, so the beneficial effects of the NAC were seen within 9 weeks of treatment, which does coincide with, so NAC also gets used for gambling addiction and also substance addiction. So it's consistent. So in other studies for cocaine use, they've noticed a reduction in cocaine use after 3 days. And in gambling addiction, they notice it after 8 weeks that NAC will start working. And in this study in particular, they were noticing NAC working after 9 weeks. So it sort of goes hand in hand with what it's shown for other addictive type behaviours in previous studies. So there was no reported adverse experiences in patients who received the NAC, but interestingly enough, there was a few adverse experiences, but they were only in the placebo group. So they saw nausea, diarrhea, and a cough, which I also found interesting because NAC actually works for respiratory illnesses. And so I thought, well, if that person that got the cough during the 12 weeks, the NAC might have helped them. So I also wanted to touch on why NAC would have worked or could work for you if you are a hair puller. So it has antioxidant activity. So NAC is a form of cysteine that helps us to synthesize glutathione. So glutathione is the most abundant antioxidant in the body. Basically, it scavenges free radicals in the body and prevents cells from damaging. So I know I talk a lot on Tricky Nutrition about biochemical imbalances. Oxidative stress is one of those. When we've got too little antioxidants and too many free radicals, that's when we see an imbalance. And oxidative stress has been linked to a number of psychiatric disorders, including schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression and anxiety, and no doubt trichotillomania as well. But it's also to do a lot with other diseases and disordered states as well. So, oxidative stress can also be linked to things like diabetes, Hashimoto's, rheumatoid arthritis. Like it's got a lot to do with a lot of diseases. So glutathione, being one of the most abundant antioxidants in the body, if we can produce more of that, which is what NAC helps us do, it can definitely go a long way. So glutathione is the brain's primary antioxidant. Oxidative stress, which can occur in childhood, can alter your epigenetic signature and alter the way your proteins that your body produce are expressed. So even if you have a risk factor or it's in your genes that you've got previous diseases or disordered states in your family, does not mean, this is what this sentence is telling you, does not mean that you are guaranteed to get that disorder. So the way, everything that we eat, our environment, everything around us, can actually change the way genes are expressed. So I wanted to put that in there to make sure that that it is not the end, and there are things that can be done. So, and that quote comes from Professor Michael Burke. So I did want to mention him because he has done a lot of research in and around N-Acetyl Cysteine. A lot is done on other psychiatric disorders, but if you want to know more about NAC, I would definitely look into some of his work because he has done a lot for NAC. So he is Alfred Deakin Chair of Psychiatry at the Deakin University. So, and I think as last time I checked, I think that was in 2023, he was still in that role. So, but a lot of research, and you can find all that on the internet if you really want to delve a little bit deeper into N-Acetyl Cysteine. So the other great mechanism of action when it comes to NAC and Trich is the glutamate regulation. So for those who don't know what glutamate is, it is the most abundant excitatory neurotransmitter in our brain. We need it in our brain for certain functions, but we don't want too much of it. And that's something that when it comes to hair pulling, we may have too much of it. So low levels can be linked to learning and memory issues, low concentration and mental exhaustion. But I do want to add here before I talk about NAC is that, you know, there are things with your healthy lifestyle and food that you can do to help with glutamate regulation as well. So chronic stress can lead to more glutamate release, and exercise can actually stop its release. So just those two things alone can actually help the regulation of glutamate. And also another thing that you may know if you've been following along Tricky Nutrition for a while is that glutamate foods can also play a part in hair pulling behaviours. So I know with quite a few of my Trich clients, so I treat Trich clients one-on-one online, and I've eliminated glutamate foods, so think MSG, but then it's also naturally occurring in some foods like tomatoes, egg yolks, mushrooms. By eliminating those foods, we can see a big difference in hair pulling urges, especially if glutamate regulation is one of your underlying imbalances. So I've just written here, so healthy levels of glutamate provide energy for brain cells. They help regulate mood, help control learning and memory, and can actually promote a healthy sleep cycle. So it's really important to look at that and to look at glutamate regulation as that mechanism of action of what NAC does, but also what we can do for a healthy lifestyle and food and diet related. So I just last little bit here. So, and I do go through this in my NAC and Trich course in a lot more detail, but NAC has been demonstrated to be a glutamate modulating agent. So it's converted to cysteine, which is what we need to make the glutathione, which I mentioned before. But what it does is basically it increases the extracellular glutamate levels involved in restoring the inhibitory tone of synaptic receptors. So basically it decreases the release of glutamate in the brain. So we have less of that excitatory neurotransmitter, and you think less of that, less pulling urges. So I just wanted to get that across. I've put extra information in there that you can have a read of. I didn't want to go in. I didn't want to make this video too long, that you can have a look if you pause it. Have a read of that if you do want to know a little bit more with the science of glutamate regulation. But I think that is one, you know, key thing, that and oxidative stress. That's how NAC is working to help with Trich. And it's only going to help with Trich if that's one of your imbalances. So if you have oxidative stress and that is something, you know, your antioxidant levels are really low, you know, you might not be having enough vitamin C foods, you might not be having you know, enough fruits and vegetables, then you might be overrun with those scavengers. So that's what I wanted to get across today, and that's what NAC can help with. And so if that's one of your underlying, NAC would help you. However, you know, you might have it and it may not help you because there could be other deficiencies going on. There could be a vitamin D deficiency, which we need. We might have a B12 or a folate deficiency, or the MTHFR gene variation. I've got videos on quite a few of these things, so definitely check out the channel. And I've also got a NAC and Trich course that I'm currently putting together. So I've just done module 2. You've just seen a part of module 2. So we deep dive into that clinical study, but also the pediatric study, and then we go a little bit further into antioxidant activity and glutamate regulation. In the first module, I explained what NAC is, the history of NAC, how it works in the body. And then module 3, we're going through how to use NAC for trichotillomania. We're going to be going through specific dosage recommendations and different products that you can get that are on the market. And then in module 4, I'm looking at safety considerations. So very important, especially if you're giving it to your child, but also for yourself. So there was quite a few adverse reactions in the pediatric study. So definitely look that up as well. It's a 2013 study, and there was 39 children and adolescents in that one. So if you want to look that up, I'll leave the link for my Trich and NAC course in this video. So if you do want to, by the time you're listening to this video, it might all be released, but it is April 2024 at the moment, and I'm currently finishing researching, recording, and writing this course. So I'm up to module 2. I just thought I'd share a bit of it with you today. You can find me over on Tricky Nutrition on Facebook or Instagram. Please check out my other videos. I'll be adding more videos all the time. So if you do subscribe to the channel, you'll get updates and see whenever I release a new video. Please like or comment on the video. I love hearing feedback from you guys. Any little comment or like, it can make my day. So sitting here in an office from home, and it's nice just to know that the work is getting out there, and that you're getting the information that you need to overcome hair pulling. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, laura@trickynutrition.com.au. I do see clients one-on-one online. I've had over 100 clients with Trich, and we are seeing amazing results. I've seen amazing results for myself as well, where we can reduce urges and we can overcome this behavior. It doesn't have to be a forever thing. So hopefully you enjoyed that video, and I'll catch you at the next one. Bye for now.